Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our July RTD webinar. Thanks for taking the time today to come along to this session. So today we'll be looking at the, excuse me, the update we've made to our Supervisors Handbook. Joining me today will be our cadet engineer, Muskan Soni, who will be co-presenting with me, and Muskan's certainly done a lot of the heavy lifting with regard to reviewing and getting this update ready to go. But certainly at the outset, I'd like to acknowledge that this document is in its 8th edition. It's been reviewed and contributed to by many people over many years. So I'd certainly like to make note of all those who have provided input to this document over the years. And we certainly have only done an update. With this time, we certainly haven't gone back to square one, and so a lot of the content that's come from those other authors and other contributors has been carried through in this latest edition as well. Right, so the agenda for today's session, for those who aren't aware, we'll go through a bit of a review or an update as to what the handbook is, cover the information at a high level as to what's in the handbook, and then go through some specifics as to the changes that have been made in the new edition. There's also a little bit of information about how you can access this document, and then there'll be a chance for Q&A at the end. Having said that, there is certainly the Q&A and chat functions within this webinar. So if you do have questions or comments as we're going through, please do pop them in either the chat or the Q&A, and we'll endeavour to sort of address those as we're going through. Okay, so broadly speaking, what is the handbook? Really, we sort of see this as the Bible, as it were, for public works practitioners, particularly those who are operating out in the field. It's really designed as a practical handbook, practical guidebook that supervisors and others in, team leader type roles in the field can come to. It's also really useful, I believe, and many of us sort of believe that people who might be new to public works, new to council, or younger engineers who are coming through, it's a good resource for them to go through to just understand some of the base information as to how to do certain activities and what it means when we're using some of these terms. So it serves dual purposes. Obviously, it's designed with the supervisors as the main target audience, but I think there are some ancillary audiences as a part of this as well. Muskan, is there anything you want to add to that at all?
I would just reiterate what you mentioned. So certainly speaking, coming in as a young engineer, I think the handbook really centralizes all of the different assets and services that councils manage, and so it provides quite a broad overview in one go and one centralized piece of information.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, so in terms of the chapters that are in the handbook, the 8th edition, there's 21 chapters. I won't sort of read through the headings there. You can see them on the screen. Go through these in a bit more detail, but broadly sort of covering off on, roles and responsibilities, some legal requirements. Then gets down into more specific considerations across certain activities. Does cover things that not every supervisor is maybe going to be across, but we've tried to be as comprehensive as possible with the document. Obviously, quite a bit of a focus in that construction space, so roads, curb and gutter, materials, things like that. And there are certainly some maintenance considerations that are called out in some of the other chapters as well, around bridges and parks and gardens. There are some more, I guess, fringe type chapters that cover some content there that maybe not every council deals with. Airports are a good example of that. But again, trying to make this as comprehensive as possible. It's certainly captured in the guide. So look, we'll jump into the chapters in a little bit more detail and some of the major updates that are included in this. We've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I'd certainly acknowledge that Peter Casillas was the lead author on the update to this edition. Muskan and myself, as I said, I've reviewed it quite a few times. So it meant that we have probably slimmed it down a little bit from the last edition. I think it's maybe a slightly lower page count. That's due to some of the information we felt was a little bit superfluous, so we've pulled a bit out. Having said that, I don't think there's anything that came out that was particularly critical. So it's not like you're going to be worse off because of that. But certainly we'll look at, I guess, the updates and the additions that have been put into this this latest edition of the document. So chapter 1, intro and the role of the supervisor. Some of the updates there were around looking at, prioritising, your own health and safety as a supervisor, the fact that you're, acting as a role model for others in your organisation or in your team, and linking that, I guess, back to some of the changes in legislation that have come up in recent years. Right to disconnect would be an obvious one that sort of jumps out as one of those things that now needs to be managed as a part of, a modern workforce. And then there is a little bit on in the second chapter under code of conduct and delegations. I'd almost suggest that this is a little bit of a very light touch to our roles and responsibilities course, which obviously goes into that in a lot more detail, but this is sort of condensed down at that at supervisor level and deals with some of those things around, staff management and bullying and harassment, those sorts of areas. Muskan, anything you want to add to either of those two chapters?
No, I think you've pretty much covered how it focuses on how the supervisor fits into the council and what kind of responsibilities they're taking on.
Great, thank you. So the third chapter is on work, health and safety. Been a few updates based on amendments to relevant legislation. So there's some stuff that came out in 2022 and 2023 that we've updated in the handbook. One that we added in, which I was actually frankly quite surprised wasn't already in there, is the hierarchy of risk controls, probably well known to the engineers who are in this webinar, and certainly I've known about it for many, many years. We thought it's just good to include in there as a risk framework to get the supervisors and their teams thinking about different ways to approach risk, and the fact that sure, you've got your PPE, but really that is the lowest order of control. You should be thinking higher level and trying to manage it at that level if possible. So I think that's certainly a noteworthy inclusion to the guide. Muskan, anything more from your end?
Specifically, yes, for looking at the top and then working your way down to the bottom for the hierarchy. So just because PPE wouldn't be the only way to ensure that workers are safe on site, and it provides more guidance on when the Supervisors Handbook states to look at controls for improving safety on site. So it's a little bit like the cheese theory, where if you have different controls, you're closing up all of the holes to make sure that an incident doesn't happen.
Great, thank you. All right, the next two chapters, so safety in trenches, confined spaces and treatment works. There's been some minor changes to this one based on updates in the Australian Standard. I think the main one that's called out there is the requirement for those signages around entry by permit only. We're obviously not trying to cover this comprehensively, and the guide does sort of direct users to more bespoke training if they need to address confined spaces. So this is certainly not a replacement for that. It's more of an understanding of what are your responsibilities and where can you find more information. The environmental factors, I think it had some pretty meaningful updates. So Muskan, I don't know if you want to cover those.
So with the environmental factors updates, it's more so about providing a reason for why supervisors should focus on the environmental management side on work sites. And so it's looking at a little bit of potential legal consequences or financial penalties, and also the negative impacts as a result of not looking at these, so such as air and water pollution, habitat loss, and also soil erosion. And so continuing on from that, it offers a little bit about the monitoring techniques that can be used to monitor environmental impacts, such as looking at stormwater runoff, especially when there's heavy rains or flooding, and just being able to see if it's not running off on site into other water bodies. And also offering a little bit about sustainable practices such as sustainable procurement and also locally available sources, just in line with all of the new climate action and sustainability plans that councils are focusing on.
Right. And certainly that sustainability element is something that's called out in a few of the chapters that are updated in this edition as well. All right, so the next two chapters, reading and using plans, measurements in areas and volumes. There weren't too many changes to these sections. They're pretty well understood, and hasn't, I guess, been a lot of change in this area. Covers some important aspects of, supervision and project commencement activities. We did tweak a little bit some of the diagrams and information in the measurement of areas and volumes. So there's a little bit more guidance there just around doing those basic site calculations, noting that, again, that's fairly first principles in its approach, and certainly there may be crews out there who've got technology that can enable them to do those sort of things a bit more efficiently.
Yep, and all of those plans are also available on the RTD resources library if you wanted to have a closer look at them. So they're all from 2021.
They're now standard drawing set if anyone needs them. Traffic control for works and special events. This area has obviously seen quite a bit of change in the last few years, what with the harmonisation of temporary traffic management at a federal level as led by Austroads, and some changes to the relevant Australian standards, and that's flowed through the state government sort of guidance through their technical manual as well. So we've updated a fair bit of the terminology in there. I think the main one was shifting from TCP to TGS, and then almost I know in the past they used to have the set of standard traffic control plans everyone used to just photocopy out of the back of the book, but there's been a bit of a shift away from that to more site specific development of TGSs as they're now known. So for supervisors, that obviously does have some implications. It means that it's not as easy to get one of these things on site and get it developed. So just giving some guidance around that they may either need to have someone within their organisation who's got that higher level training to be able to do that, or they need to engage an external provider to cover them off. Anything else on that one, Lucia?
Another major update would just be at the very bottom regarding Safe Work New South Wales and Transport for New South Wales traffic control courses. So previously they were under WorkSafe, so they've just transitioned over.
Yep, thank you. Next chapter is on pipelines, maintenance and construction. Probably the biggest change there is the change from dub before you dig to before you dig Australia. So slight tweaking of the wording there, but obviously the same service, just offered under a different entity. And then there was an update to one of the codes of practice around excavation. We tweaked a few of the diagrams as well in this chapter just to try and make it a bit easier for people to understand when we're talking about bedding and haunch levels and things like that for your backfilling. So more quality of life type improvements in this chapter, I think, than anything else. Now the big one, road construction and maintenance. This is probably the biggest chapter in the handbook. Not a lot of changes here. Obviously, it's a pretty well-known and robust, body of knowledge. There hasn't been a heap of innovation in terms of the techniques for road construction and maintenance in recent years, with the one exception probably being the implementation or rollout of AI type solutions. So we do call that out there, and shamelessly, obviously, promote the Asset AI platform that we're working on. But I think gives people a bit of a sense as to the sorts of technology that's out there, particularly from a maintenance perspective, and how supervisors may get involved in that, particularly, again, if they're in charge of inspections and other activities like that. And again, there's the tweak from dial before you dig divider, so that's a consistent one that we've seen throughout the handbook as well. Muskan, anything from you to add?
Not all good for this
Okay,
one.
great, thanks. One thing I wouldn't actually, which I probably should have said at the top, this document obviously traditionally has been available as a hard copy, and certainly will still be left available as a hard copy. There is a PDF version, and we're just sort of working out exactly how people are going to be able to get access to that. But what we've done is gone through in that PDF version at least and hyperlinked to all of the relevant guides that are called out, all of the relevant Australian standards and other specifications. So if people are accessing it digitally, it makes it really easy for them just to go and click on that link, and then they can take them to the relevant piece of information that they might need to look at in more detail. Okay, next to materials. So there were some tweaks around materials. There was a couple of changes to some of the Austroads documents. And we also looked a bit more heavily at some of the innovation in regard to use of plastics and other materials like that. We don't specifically look at recycled materials because there's a separate chapter that addresses those in a bit more detail. But there's certainly some synergy between those two chapters. And then the footpaths, curb and guttering, again, pretty much the same as the road chapter. There's not a lot of change in that space, so there hence wasn't a need to make drastic changes to this chapter. A few little tweaks around some of the diagrams, and you can see one there just to sort of call out how you would do your slump test and things like that. Let's get anything more from you on those two?
No, I think it's all good.
Good, thank you. Bridges. We've released 3 updated bridge documents from the RTD over the last couple of years. So the quick loading and assessment guide from 2023 is certainly referenced in the Supervisors Handbook. That provides some guidance as to how you can approach your visual inspections, and also how to seek more advice if you need to do the higher level type inspection activities on your bridges. And the other 2, which are the bridge guide and the bridge design guide, are certainly referenced in these chapters as well, although not as relevant to supervisors as they would be for the engineers. And then there's an update, I think, to the TFNSW bridge inspection procedure, which has been updated in the last few years as well. So we've called that out in there. Scan, anything more from you?
Not regarding the updates, just that this section would have a lot of the helpful tables and figures with looking at the condition descriptions for bridges and also timber species.
Yeah, no, good point. Thank you. So maintenance of parks and gardens and recycling. So parks and gardens, again, not a huge sort of change there. There was some updated guidance from Transport for New South Wales around their landscape design guideline. So we've certainly called that out in there. The recycled materials one, as I mentioned, we've sort of gone through that one in a bit more detail. There obviously has been some innovation in that space, particularly over the last few years. So we've tried to include that in giving a bit of an overview of these materials and how people may either be able to access them or want to work with them. It's certainly an evolving space, so I do foresee that we'll be providing some more guidance in this area, and Muscat and I are certainly working on a project at the moment to sort of pull that all together into a comprehensive recycled material guide. So yes, it is an area of active development for us at the moment. Muscat, anything you want to add to that?
I think you've covered most of the updates for that section.
All good. Right, water supply and sewage and marine structures. Look, there weren't many changes that we made to these 2 chapters. I think they were pretty good. I know there were a few tweaks we made to some of the nomenclature around the pipe fittings, and I think there was some probably out of use terms that we tweaked slightly. So just to try and make it a bit more appealing to a modern audience. But other than that, there wasn't a whole lot that was changed in either of these 2 chapters.
Yeah.
Utilities and other agencies, like any good government, there's been plenty of restructures in this space in the last few years. So we had to do a pretty comprehensive review of all the government departments and how they've shifted. So they're certainly called out in there. I wouldn't say it's exhaustive, but we've tried to, give a pretty comprehensive view of the ones that councils deal with on a regular basis and some of the approvals and things that supervisors may be involved in, or at least provide some input to. The regional airports one really hasn't changed much at all, so I think we haven't done a lot in that space. Anything to add to that, Moscow?
Just that the roads and maritime services updates have also been reflected throughout the handbook. It's not just in utilities and other agencies.
Yeah, very good point. So so we've most of the references to RTA or RMS have been updated to Transport for New South Wales. The only exceptions to that are where there were guidance that was published under either the RTA or RMS that have not been updated since then. So we may actually call out, RMS guide, blah, 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 2006. That's because that's the most recent edition of that document. So if you go searching for it, you'll be looking for it under the old RMS, not TFNSW. Waste management, probably the biggest change there is the mandate for FOGO for all councils by 2030. We just called that out in the guide. I know a lot of regional councils already have it, but I think some of the metros are still looking into that and how it's going to happen for them. So I think in terms of the level of involvement from supervisors, this is probably more from an information perspective, unless they're particularly involved with waste collection activities.
Yep, nothing to add from me.
Good. Accessibility. This is one that I know Muskan did a fair bit of work on, updating all the relevant standards and information in that. So I might throw to you, Muskan, to provide a bit of an overview on this one.
So for this section, most of the survey findings are for the previous survey of disability, aging, and carers. So that was done in 2015, and since then there have been a few, but looking at the most latest one, it would be 2022. And so what we've seen is that the number of Australians with disabilities has increased. So in 2015, I believe it was 4.1 million, and it's now increased to 5.5 million Australians. And we've also gone through and updated all of the other surveys, such as the National Health Survey and also the standard. So there is one mention of the 2015 SDAC survey, which looks at sort of the mandate for councils and their roles and responsibilities in ensuring accessibility. But everything else we've ensured to change all of the findings and statistics for that, just to provide more guidance on the role of councils in ensuring that accessibility is considered in building construction.
Thanks, Muskan. And just noting on the screen there that we do have a guide that we published quite a few years ago for the design of accessible outdoor spaces. That's one we've got on the radar to possibly do a review of and an update in the near future. But certainly there's plenty of other information people can find through the relevant ASs if they need it. All right. Well, look, that's a pretty quick run through of the updates that we've made to the handbook. As we've got on the screen there, people can order hard copies through the IPWEA New South Wales website. There's a QR code there that should take you directly to the link. I think the web page is not quite updated yet, but rest assured that'll be done in the next week or so. And so if you want to get a copy of the 8th edition, that is the way to do it. And obviously this document is integral to the PD course for Public Works Supervisors workshop. And I believe there's one of those running next week as well. And so the latest edition will be obviously shared as a part of that. We'll have some hard copies that should be available in the office early next week. All right. Well, look, I realise we've gone through that fairly quickly, but there's a bit of time now for Q&A. Colin, I did see that you popped a question in there, which Will has responded to, but certainly we're happy to share a copy of these slides with yourself, if you feel that you'd be able to use them. So I might just throw it out there. If there's any more questions that anyone has, feel free to pop them either in the Q&A or the chat, and we're happy to address them now. If you don't and you've got any that you think of after this, or if you're watching this recording and have any questions, please do feel free to send them through to us at either the main RTD or main IPWEA New South Wales email addresses. Well, Scott, is there anything we haven't covered that was sort of, came out in the update that you wanted to mention here?
I think we've covered everything in specific for each chapter. We've mostly updated all of the legislation, regulations, the safety standards and other design standards by Australian standards. We've also looked at updating all of the guides, the manuals and reports that are referenced, and so all of the older links and hyperlinks have been updated to match those changes. Mostly the two biggest changes would be the RMS to Transport for New South Wales, and also DEL Before You Dig to Before You Dig Australia. So I think it covers everything comprehensively within the slides. And just looking at a little bit about changing a little bit of the wording to make sure it's readable, and just improving anything else in regards to that to make sure it's clear and concise.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, well, look, we haven't had a flurry of questions come in, so I presume we've covered everything from the audience's perspective. So, look, we will wrap it up there. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your time today to attend this webinar. We're still finalising the exact details of our August webinar. We've got two possibilities we're looking at. So once we've narrowed that down to the one, we'll be sending through details of that in the very near future. So hopefully we'll see you all there, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you, everyone.